Hello, this is Ken Toomey again for Economics and Financial Markets. So we're now into the second half of the semester, and this week we've quite a lot to get through. So first of all, just want to advise that again the guest speakers are back this week, and in fact we have two very interesting guest speakers. One in particular I want to draw your attention to on Friday is the head of North American equities for Zurich, and that's Mr. Damien Mead. And what I've asked Damien to address is to some extent what you're doing for your equity project. In other words, how to select stocks from a North American universe. So that's what he does for a living, and he'll explain how he's put together his own portfolio. Obviously that has more than one stock, but it's relatively small. I think as far as I know it's something around 30-35 stocks. So again, he has to do essentially the full analysis on all the stocks that he puts into that portfolio. So again, if some of you, I'm aware at the moment, are probably at the stage where you maybe have narrowed it down within a given sector to a couple of stocks, and you're trying to decide between the different pros and cons, let's say, of different stocks. So if you do have particular questions about how to finally select a stock for a portfolio, keep those for Damien on Friday. The second speaker then we have coming on Wednesday at 5 is David Conran. David is a former student at NUI Galway, indeed took this financial markets module. I think he graduated in about 2008, just at the height of the last financial crisis. And Dave now works for JP Morgan in London as an investment banker, in particular in the area of M&A, mergers and acquisitions. And he works with very large clients for JP Morgan, who, as you know, are one of the world's biggest investment banks. And what he's going to talk about, he's going to talk a little bit about what he does, how the world of investment banking works, the different areas within investment banking. But he's also going to talk a little bit about what's been happening in the last year in the M&A space and current trends as well. So I know some of you, for example, are interested in SPACs, and that's one of the things that Dave is currently working on. So I'll leave him address those in due course. So in addition to that, what I'm going to do this week as well, I'm going to put together two recorded sessions. One is going to be on stock screens. So again, when you're trying to figure out which stocks to buy, there's a couple of ways to do it. You can obviously do your fundamental research, but you can also help yourself by narrowing things down. So some of those screens, as we're going to see, will be predetermined. There are certain well-known screens such as GARP screens, for example, and there's also growth screens. Again, nowadays there are a lot of online screening tools you can use, so I'll be quickly going through some of those. Another thing that some people do is to follow the experts. So for example, there's a Warren Buffett screen, there's a Peter Lynch screen. So again, these famous investors, what do they do? Again, there's now ways in which you can try to replicate what they do. Again, it may not make necessarily a relevance for your own project right now, but again, it's something to think about. Because one thing I just want to advise, again, in the final assessment, there'll be another opportunity to do some equity research. So the other thing I'm going to do, and again it will be very relevant for both the equity project and also for the final assessment, is technical analysis. So I'm going to cover technical analysis in another short recorded session. Again, TA or chartism, as it's known, is something that is best of learned by doing. In other words, find a stock, find your own stock, for example, for the project, and find another stock maybe for the final assessment, and you can go to the various websites that provide TA analysis, and you can put in your own charts, you can amend things and so on. So what I'm going to do in the short classes, in the recorded classes, is just basically explain the premise of TA, show you some of the main indicators, what they're about, and then I'll leave it up to yourselves to apply those in a real world situation. And then finally on Thursday, in our normal slot, what I'm going to do this week is I'm going to start by looking at probably the biggest innovation in stock markets, I would say, in the last 20 years, namely the exchange traded fund, or ETF. So we'll talk a little bit about where ETFs have come from, how they initially developed, and then finally some of the recent trends in ETFs, such as, for example, ARC's active ETFs that I mentioned previously. And again, that's going to be quite relevant for your final assessment, where again I'm going to actually allow you the opportunity to put together your own ETF based portfolio, and we'll discuss that later on in the module. Again, just to clarify, I suppose the final assessment, which will also be handed out late in the semester, In this case, it's going to be a take-home assessment, and it's going to be quite practical and project-oriented. So again, I'll give you more information on that once that particular final assessment has been validated. So that's it really for now. I'm also going to just send on a couple of other articles I think are interesting. One thing that I just saw this morning that might be of interest to some of you, again from the money and banking side, was a paper published today by the ECB explaining that cash in circulation has reached all-time highs in the Eurozone, which is not what you might have expected, except for those who did money banking and remember that's what we were talking about at that stage. So I'll leave it at that for today, and we'll check in with you on Wednesday.